Hello and welcome to Vital Signs. We're your hosts, Kathleen and Gerhard Stoop.
Good day.
On today's show, we're going to be starting with why. For those of you who've seen the book or watched the TED Talk, absolutely right. It's the title of a book by Simon Sinek called Start with Why. A bit of a buzz about this book. A lot of people have thought it's a little bit like a buzz term, but it's actually a really fantastic read. The way that we discovered Simon Sinek was actually through a TED Talk. I don't know if you want to tell, for those who haven't heard of TED, a little bit more about that.
TED Talks, I need to warn you that you can get addicted to it. It's once you start, you can't stop listening to it. And what I enjoy about it is it's short. You don't have a half an hour listening to somebody. It's sweet and short, and there's always a good message. And I really love listening to, and there's a variety. It's on business, economics, life. So I think that's why we love TED Talk so much.
Yeah, it's certainly something that we do for inspiration, and one of the things we're wanting to do with you through the show is to share some of the TED Talks we've watched, but also to share with you some of the books we've read, books that we've either found inspiring or have challenged the way that we think, or simply are entertaining. Successful people read a book a week,
yes.
It's said. Well, we're not quite up to those stats yet, but certainly our aim is to share ideas with you as we go through our own reading. All right. So what inspired me to read Simon's book was really a TED Talk that ranks amongst the top 10 talks on TED Talks, and it's about starting with why. It sounds deceptively easy. But once you start to actually go through the process, you realize that a lot of things that we instinctively think about are actually our whats. And part of coaching and part of developing a brand is starting with your why. Now, there's some really beautiful examples in this book of companies that successfully use why. And one that I'd like to share with you, not only because it's a well-known example, but also because many people can identify with the why, is the company Apple. All right, so Apple makes computers. We all know Apple for iPhones and Macs, but really their why is much, much bigger than that. And because they know their why, whatever Apple does really doesn't matter as long as it's consistent with what their why is. And their why is to challenge the status quo and to think differently. Yeah. All right. People will often think about Apple as a social movement rather than a company, because people who connect with the way that Apple think see their products really as a status symbol or a way of telling the world that they identify and think differently too. So in my case, I'm an Apple fan, and to be honest, it doesn't matter what they're selling. I'm going to be in the queue for whatever it is that they're bringing out.
But I think also, like, sometimes when a new product comes out for Apple, it's never perfect. Normally after a week or two, there's a patch, say you need to upload a new software. And I think sometimes we want everything to be perfect before we launch. If we want to be perfect, we will never launch. And I think Apple got the ingredient, the secret to launch a product. People know, they know their philosophy, they know what Apple stands for. And if there's a mistake, it's okay, because they know Apple will fix it.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think if you ask people to explain why Apple is better, if I try to explain to you why I'm an iPhone user rather than an Android user, I would probably try and explain it in terms of features. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what other features Android brings out, because I believe in what Apple believes, and so I'm always going to be loyal to their brand.
And I think that's where companies need to know their why. You need a following. You need a community of people that support you. You need customers that will come back and buy again. But they can only do it if they believe in you, if they believe in your product, if they believe in your values. So many companies, when we ask them, and what is your why, they cannot tell us. And we have to go through this whole process to find out their why. And once they find their why, everything falls into place. That's why, for example, this is my why. I keep it on my wrist every day to know this is my why, what I do. So my why is to help people to get results. It's all about the end result for me, to grow, to find your why, to grow as a person. And if you do that, you will help other people. You can leave a legacy. It's not always about the money, it's about a legacy. And I think the older you get, it's more about the legacy. The younger you are, it's more about the money. Again, what is your why? So for me, it's about getting the results and get people out of that comfort zone, out of that limits they set themselves, and see, well, this is the way it should be, or this is the way I always thought it should be. We're there to help you to get your why, you can live the life you want.
I think you said something really interesting there. A lot of people are in the life they lead and do the job they do, not because that's something that they have to do, it's just that they really haven't thought there's an alternative.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that we want to do is challenge people to think about their beliefs, because sometimes we don't even realize that things we accept are because of a belief.
Yes.
And also to look at alternatives. And I think the most exciting thing, and which we'll explore a bit later, is that when you discover your why, you're not limited in terms of what you can do. If you're focusing on your what, that really narrows your focus on a particular path.
Yes.
And it's quite liberating to realize that your why can manifest in a number of different ways.
I want to add to that, because I think if you know your why, you also brand yourself. And branding is one of the most important things for you as a person and also for your business. It's important to know that there's two kinds of branding. It's you as a person and your business. And I want to read something from J.T. Fox and his book called Millionaire Underdog. And this is, when I read it, I just thought I need to share it with everybody. He said, when you are branded, you have credibility. And credibility gives you the power to influence and get access to opportunities or people you would never have the opportunity to. Isn't that amazing if you know your why, that you can get branded? When you get branded, you get opportunities. When you get opportunities, you have power to change things. I don't think we realize how important it is to know your why before you even start your business.
I think there's a beautiful example in this book where Simon talks about Apple just very clearly knowing their why, and someone like Steve Jobs doing a great job communicating that why. So they were driven by this idea of challenging the status quo, doing things differently, and an opportunity that they saw was to change the music industry. Now, one of the things I didn't know is that Apple actually didn't invent the technology behind the iPod or MP3 files. There's actually another company that had introduced it before. But the way that the company was introducing it was very much in terms of a product and features, and it just wasn't something that people could really understand why they needed it. Apple came along and said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. And people immediately resonated with that. The fact that Apple was suddenly not making computers didn't matter. It's consistent with their why. They challenged another industry.
Yep.
We're going to take a short break, but we'd love you to stick around and hear how you discover your why. Welcome back Gerald and I have just been chatting in the break a little bit about what it means to have a product and a service. So the what you do compared to why you do it. And I was just sharing with him another example that Simon raises about a computer company that makes really good computers called Dell. Many of you be familiar with that name. They also tried to venture into the MP3 space. But people just got confused by that because Dell had always been a company that said, we make computers. That's why we exist. We exist to make computers. And so customers just couldn't understand why they were suddenly trying to get into the music industry. It just didn't make sense to them. Yeah. And I think because Apple had always put themselves out there as we're here to challenge the status quo, we're here to think differently, it just makes sense when they introduced a new product that challenged another industry. So as we were saying, people tend to sort of go, oh, buzzword, start with why. But often people confuse their why, which is very deep, with what they do.
Yeah. But I also think when you start with your why, is not to limit yourself. Like Apple, the way they introduce themselves is that it's very wide. Where if you say you do computers, you limit yourself for the future. And I really think it's important to be 8 steps ahead in business. And if you're going to limit yourself, you are not going to grow your business. You cannot be 8 steps ahead if you don't know your why. I know we use the word why a lot, but I can't emphasize enough to say know your why, but also be 8 steps ahead in your business. Because with social media, with people chasing you all the time, you cannot afford to stagnate and just go like a flat line. You have to innovate all the time in your business to stay alive. And that's your why should just help you to boost your business and keep on innovating and go up.
Yeah. I think we've been talking a little bit about it in terms of I've been in the allied health industry for a long time and just talking about how there's a lot of disruption happening. Technology is changing incredibly quickly. And we were saying that one of the things that really creates a risk if you don't know your why and you don't have a broader sense is that if you're too narrow, you're going to miss opportunities that new innovations and new technologies out there could offer. So, for example, when people ask me what I do, I've stopped saying anything around I test ears or fit hearing aids. Firstly, because it's always met with the joke going, what? What did you say? If only I had $1 for every time I heard that joke. But the reality is my why is connectedness. So I help people connect. And there are different things that people want to connect with. It might be family, it may be music, it may be sounds of nature. It doesn't really matter. If I can help them connect, I can help them stay socially active, I can help them stay mentally alert. What I do or how I do that really doesn't become as important. So if there's another great technology out there, I don't have to limit myself to hearing aids or cochlear implants. I can just embrace another technology if it helps me help people connect.
Yes.
So I think there's a real danger if you do think too narrowly that you may actually miss opportunities simply because you've got a very narrow focus.
I want to add to that as well, is with your why, is that your staff, you need to communicate that so clearly to your staff, your values and your why, so you can have the right staff to help you to achieve your why and your vision. So many times people come into a business and they just employ somebody because they need a bum on the seat. I really think you need to take longer to employ, get the right person that believes in your values and believe in your why. And then you will get there. Because most of the time, those people will have ideas as well that you can help implement and grow your business. I work for companies that were very narrow-minded. You are paid to do a job, you're not paid to think. There's a company in Germany that told their staff that they can every morning from 8 until 10 work on one of their projects that will help advance the company. But in that 2 hours, you're not allowed to have telephone calls or emails. Productivity and ideas went through the roof because the people believed in the company, in their why, and they were part of the success. So the why is the starting point of everything in your business.
So it turns out that Simon is correct.
I believe Simon.
And I think what you raised there is really important. So what Simon describes is you start with why, and why will often come from the visionary or the CEO.
Yeah.
They have purpose, and they want to get that purpose out to the world. They want to tell people their why, and they want to inspire others to help them achieve it. But often people who have the vision of the why don't know how to do it. So they have to then partner with people who are very strong at systems and figuring out how we're going to get the message out there. And then the next layer is really, well, what do we do? And there, again, you need a different kind of person who's actually going to be on the ground and delivering the service or selling the product. So why is a starting point, but there's really an entire team that needs to believe in the why to move the mission and the vision forward.
But I also think is that a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs are so busy working in their business that they don't actually know their way, or they forgot their why. As a CEO, you need to be in the future. You need to work on that why. Your managers need to be in the present, and your staff is normally in the past. But you as a CEO needs to be the person that drives the why, and the managers to support you to get there. It's a team effort. If you think you can do it alone, it's very hard work. You need to have a team that believes in you.
Yeah, and I think even as sort of an entrepreneur working on their own, you may not be employing those support people, but you still have to have a network who provide support. So your support may not be on your payroll, but it's very difficult to do everything yourself.
I think that's a lesson to know that you cannot do it on your own. If you do it on your own, it takes so much longer to get where you want to be. Again, with the world is such a small place with technology at the moment. Virtual assistants, Skype, Zoom, it's just endless. Start investigating those things. Again, as CEO or entrepreneur, it's your job to find those people to help you to get where you want to be. Don't try to do everything yourself.
Yeah, and I think just on a personal note from our experience there, you've got to work out what you're worth on an hourly basis. And if you're trying to do a what that you don't have the skills to do, you can actually end up spending a lot of your time, which eventually equates to a lot of money, doing something that may have taken somebody who knows how to do it an hour. Initially we tried that, spend 2 days trying to get together a website, where if you actually just ask a friend or someone in your social circle to recommend someone, that could get done in 2 hours.
I think that's why we started a stop to-do list. And one of the things that we stop to do is shopping. We go online, we order our food, and every Saturday they deliver our food. That's an hour and a half a week that we have back that I can work on my business and make money. So maybe
work on furthering the why rather than doing what.
What, exactly.
So what we're going to do is take a little break, but when we come back we're going to talk you through the steps of how you discover your why.
Welcome back, and we're going to talk about vertical and horizontal thinking. I think most of us do the horizontal thinking. That's normally about what is my logo going to look like, what is my website going to look like. And those are things that's important, but it's not making money. There's no income, it's not growing your business. A lot of entrepreneurs that we talk to now, we try to get them to think vertically. So if you think about digging for gold, where's the best gold? Where's the best diamonds? It's deep down. So when you start thinking vertically, then you start, but why? Well, I want to make money. Why do you want to make money? Well, I want financial freedom. Why do you want financial freedom? Well, I want to go on holidays and be with my family. But why do you want to be with your family? Why do you want... And then I thought, well, actually, I don't know. And that's where we start to go deep and get to your why. It's not only to have financial freedom. It doesn't mean anything, financial freedom. I think we said in the past, if you want to earn $1 million, but you have to work 18 hours a day, is that financial freedom? I don't think so. For me, it's not. I think financial freedom for us is that we can sit in Bali with our computer, Zoom or Skype, and still make $1 million. So we don't have to be in one place. We don't have to work 18 hours a day. And we can do it anywhere we are, or anywhere we want to be. So that's financial freedom. But we only got there by asking why. Why? And why? Go deeper.
It's really challenging. I think any parent who has a child will remember that age around about 3, where it feels like you're getting 50 at least whys a day, and you eventually get left off the hook by just going because I said so. But it's really that kind of process. It sounds easy and it gets frustrating, but what the process of going vertical and asking why does is it really brings you to a point of knowing yourself and understanding what drives you. A good example, and we digress a little bit, but it's something that's really helped us in terms of knowing our why, is we made a decision to leave our home country. And it was a difficult decision. It was a decision to leave family behind. It was a decision to leave friends behind. In my case, it was a decision to go to a country I'd never visited before.
And good jobs.
Yeah, new jobs. Luckily, a country that spoke English, but we knew no one. It was completely new. And what we decided very firmly before we immigrated was we needed to understand exactly what was motivating us to do it. We needed to know why, because we knew that things were going to get tough. And there were some days which were incredibly tough,
yes,
and where we really felt homesick. But understanding that why is what kept us motivated and what kept us going. And chatting to other people that have had similar experiences, we've often said to them, but what are the reasons? What's the why that you left? And understanding that why helps you overcome any challenge, because it's a bigger or higher purpose.
Yes.
There's a bigger picture. So sort of going, well, we moved to a good job, or what doesn't really cut it when you need to dig deep. But understanding your why really helps you to be mentally resilient and dig deep when you need to.
But I think also in business, if you know your why, is when those challenges come, because there's no perfect business. I think you need to state that there is no perfect business. I mean, you can have the perfect building, the perfect tenants, and tomorrow council put a highway next to your building. It's not your choice. It was not your decision. It happens. So I think you need to realize that there's no perfect business. But if you know your why, it helps you to drive, to just fight that little bit harder to get what you want. And when those challenges come, you know what you need to do to overcome that so you can live your why.
I think having a very clear why also helps you stay on track. One of the things that we talk a lot about is authenticity, really being true to yourself, true to your values. And if you understand your why, and if other people in the company understand the why, decision making then becomes much easier, because you simply go, well, is that in line with what we truly believe?
Yes.
If it is, absolutely. If it isn't, you have a clear answer. It makes, I think, for a very, very strong culture if people know what the company believes in.
If you look at companies like Google and Apple, Amazon, those people got a very strong why, and they've got a very strong company culture. And I think those people are happy in their jobs because they know exactly what's expected from them, and they know why they do things. The one thing that I believe strongly in is about certainty. If you go to the doctor, for example, and you don't know what's going to happen. That anxiety you have, that scared. But if you know exactly what's going to happen, you can cope with it. So when there's certainty, there's a why, people cope better, you get more productivity out of them, you're more successful, and the results are better. Certainty and why, I think, is also connected.
Absolutely. A lot of companies have a vision and a mission statement. And certainly after having read this book, it's made us go back and look at our vision and our mission, because your vision should very clearly communicate your why.
Yes.
I think in many instances, vision communicates what and how rather than digging deep and going why. And I think that's probably something that we'll be working on with our clients in the next couple of weeks, is really just revisiting the vision and mission and making sure that it really clearly states why.
And I agree with you there. So many people that we deal with, they've got a vision and a mission, but it's a few words on a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything. If you don't communicate that vision with your staff, if you don't communicate the end result that you want with your staff, and they can't help you to get there, it's so much more effort and money and time you have to put in to get there. So by getting your why, have certainty, have a good company culture, communicate with them, you will just get where you want to be much quicker. But again, that is not always part of company culture.
I think what's really fascinating from the book about your why is also the fact that once you know your why, and there's a cause larger than yourself, other people are going to, with the same beliefs, are going to resonate towards you. And the fascinating thing about it, I use the company Apple again. Simon really does talk about other companies too, but Apple's just such a great example, is that they really regard it almost more as a social movement, because people who believe what Apple believe will go out and buy the next product, not for the company, but for themselves, and they'll share their experience and their enthusiasm and their beliefs, again, nothing to do with the company, but for themselves, because they identify, again, as people that think differently. So I think one of the great things about really understanding your why is that you create momentum so that people out there become ambassadors for your cause. These are people you may never meet, but they are a loyal following and they influence other people, again, not for the company's sake, but because it's something that they believe in to further their cause.
Adding to that is that when you have a strong why, you will have a strong brand. And when you have a strong brand, people will come to you. You will not have to go out anymore and ask and say, buy my products. Coca-Cola, again, Apple. People come to you. It just makes it so much easier to do business. So your why and branding, again, gets connected.
I think what we'll do when we come back after the break is chat a little bit more about how personal branding relates to why and how to include this in your personal brand. And welcome back. What we're going to chat about next is how your personal brand fits into all of this why business. One of the questions we constantly get asked is, do I really have to have a brand as well as my business? Isn't it enough to just have a business Facebook page or a business LinkedIn page? And our answer is always, you really need both.
Yes. With social media, I think it's so important to have your personal brand. When you go for an interview these days, it's not only about your CV. People go and look at your Facebook, they look at your LinkedIn, and if you come to an interview with a suit and you tell people how good you are and what you do over weekends, and they go to Facebook and that's not the same thing they see. I think it's not authentic anymore. I think the trust is gone because the people say that you lied. So your personal brand is really important, and how you manage it is actually more important. You need to manage your personal brand. You can't give it to somebody else to manage. I don't know if you want to talk about or add something to that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So particularly if you're a solo entrepreneur, the reality is what people are really buying is you.
Yeah.
And your ability to make a product or a service work. A lot of people will come back and say, oh, but Facebook is sort of for my friends and family. The reality is social media is out there, and whether or not you're on social media, it still says something about your branding. So it's something that you do need to actively manage. And I think whatever you post on social media, from a business point of view, whether it's your personal page or your business page, it really needs to be strategic, and it needs to communicate who you are as a person. And I think once you really understand your why, your personal why,
Yes.
and your business why are somehow connected. And I think we were chatting a little bit about this during the break. I don't think you can really deep down separate your values from your why. I think there's a very close connection, and I think if there is a disjoint or a disconnect, it automatically makes you feel inauthentic.
100%.
Well, authenticity is really, really important when it comes to branding.
Yeah, because again, people do business with people. And once you find that you connect with a person, I think you feel related. I think you feel part of something. Again, if you like Apple, I mean, it's a family. Most people, once you have Apple, you will not go somewhere else. So if you're authentic, you got your why, and you live it out, and people can see what you say is what you do, and people do business with you, you will have customers for life. It's really hard to build a brand. It's really hard to get clients, and it can take 5 seconds to break everything down that you build up. So it's really important to look after your brand.
And one of the biggest ways to do that in our current climate is to manage your social media. Something that you said a moment ago is sort of people buying from people, and I think one of the things you're saying there is you have to establish a trust. Yes. You have to establish some kind of connection, and often finding that common ground or common belief is what earns that trust. So if you're very clear on your why, and if that message comes across, if that resonates with somebody else's why and beliefs, you're going to find a connection there. It may not be something that's conscious, you're conscious about, but you'll feel a deep sense of connection.
I agree, and I think one of the best examples that happened recently is with the banks. We all believed, you go to a bank and they will give you good advice with your money, and now we see that they all lie to us. And when I look ads on the TV at the moment, I actually don't believe them. So they have demolished their brand, their values, because whatever they tell me their values are, I don't believe. So I think that's a very good example of managing your brand.
And being authentic.
And being authentic. Because even though they look authentic on TV, to me it's really difficult to believe them at the moment.
One of the interesting things that comes through in this book is the role of neurobiology. So we spend a lot of our time as coaches kind of in the thinking realm, with our thinking brain, but there's also a part of our brain called the limbic system, which is the part of the brain that regulates a lot of important survival functions, and it cannot express itself in language. It's very much about feelings. And I think the interesting thing for me is that often that trust is a feeling. You know that you've maybe gone to a doctor who's a very good doctor, but you just kind of don't feel like you connect or you gel, and you might try one or two other doctors, and then you just find someone that you connect with. It's not a case that they may be a better doctor or better qualified. It's just that there's something that connects you and you feel at ease. I think that's very much what we're talking about when we're talking about sort of having similar values and whys and connecting at a level that you might try and rationalize in language, but really it's just a gut feeling. And to go back to our over-exhausted example, but you know, I sort of feel like whatever Apple's launching next, I know I'm going to like it. It actually doesn't matter what it is. I've got a gut feeling because I'm a fan, I'll use the word fan, and I believe in their brand and I believe in their purpose. So whatever it is, it's going to advance, challenging the status quo.
But because they have their why and everybody knows their why, just look at how easy I think it is for them to make money. Okay, they don't over complicate things. They share their views, they share their why, and people connect with it and people buy. So why is it that we as small entrepreneurs don't know our why? If it works for big companies, why shouldn't it work for us?
I think that firstly, knowing your why is a process that you need to go through, and I think it's a challenging process. It's not something obvious. I think also, as we discovered on our journey, there are a lot of beliefs that you don't even realize you have, that have often come from childhood experiences or being exposed to a particular way of thinking that might actually not allow you to believe that you're entitled to pursue that why. So discovering your why can not only be a challenging process, but I think it also necessarily involves you making yourself vulnerable.
Or scared of failure.
Yeah, it's sometimes easier to put on a mask and do what's safe and what other people expect of you. It's a bit like what we were saying earlier about people accepting their lives and accepting their jobs sometimes as well, just because they haven't thought of an alternative that might be possible. So I think one of the reasons that companies and people don't know their why is because perhaps no one's ever challenged them to do that. And I think that's what one of the things we're trying to achieve through our shows is to really challenge people about their beliefs and about what they can achieve, because perhaps no one has done that for them before.
But also there's always risk in business, and sometimes the bigger the risk, the bigger the result. And as we said before, if you take a risk away, you take away opportunity. So by not being scared to fail and set yourself out there and challenge yourself, you'll be surprised the results you get. You will surprise the personal growth that you experience. And when you look back after a year and say, wow, is that the same person? I had a gut feeling and my gut feeling was right. We need to start trusting our gut as well, and stop playing it safe. I think the days of playing safe is gone.
And I think what you're really saying is that gut feeling we speak about, sort of that limbic system, those connections we don't always understand, but that seems to be quite closely linked to your why in some ways.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you look at Elon Musk, I mean, they take huge risk. I mean, one decision he can lose all his money. I mean, he's worth how many $1 billion? But they're not afraid to take risk. If nobody wants to take risk, we will just plateau like this. It's the people that take risk that gives us opportunities and let us grow as well in our businesses because they've taken risk. But we need to start taking risk.
Yeah, and risk don't like Elon Musk.
Oh, no.
I think everybody's version of risk is a little different. But I guess the challenge we're throwing out there at the end of the show really is to say to people, spend some time thinking about your why. Do you really know what drives and motivates you and what your mission is in life? All right. We'd love to hear if any of you have read this book. Please let us know your thoughts and comments. And if there are any other great books out there that you think we should read, please also share that. We'd really love to hear from you. Till next time, this is Kathleen and Gerhard. Saying see you soon.
If you want to contact us, go to Vital Signs Consulting Facebook page, like us, comment, share, and we'll get back to you. Thank you.